Have you ever been in a situation where making a decision seems impossible? There's this book I really like. Essentialism is a Humanism. In it, Sartre shares a true story about a student who found himself paralyzed by a difficult decision during World War II. This young man discovers that he has lost his father and brother. They went to fight the Nazis and never returned. Then he approaches Sartre and says, "Professor, as crazy as it sounds, this has made me want to enlist. I want to help fight Hitler's army." Sartre said, "All right, and what's the dilemma? Are you afraid?" "No, I've never felt so brave. The problem is my mother. If I go to war and don't come back, she'll be alone. On the other hand, if I don't go, I feel like a coward. So now, what's the right choice? Fight for the nation or stay home and take care of her?" There's no right choice. Ask a patriot, and he'll say risking your life is heroic. Ask your mother, she'll go mad with worry. Ask 1,000 people, and you'll get 1,000 answers. Thus, I can only give you one piece of advice. Choose and live with it. Because if there's a sign of what should be done, you're not going to find it in the world, but within yourself. I don't know what you think about that response, but to me, Sartre seems wise when it comes to difficult decisions. No one can choose for you. The reality is that we live in a world of much uncertainty, and our mental health pays the price. For example, at 17 years old, society expects you to choose a career. Man, at that age, I didn't even know how to pick my clothes. I always walked around looking odd. But seriously, our education system has failed. We are part of a generation that wasn't taught how to choose. In many regions, out of every 10 graduates, only 4 continue in their field. The majority discover they don't want to work in that area, or worse, they can't find a job. This leads us to the question, how do we make good choices? Living in a complex, chaotic world, perceived by many as unfair, is no secret. But is there a way to navigate through this chaos with more clarity? Today I'm here to show through philosophy that yes, there is. For this, I will analyze the thoughts of Sartre, an atheist, against those of Kierkegaard, a Christian. Both have very strong opinions on this subject. I challenge you to listen to them without your mind blowing. It's interesting how we look at a bird and think, this creature is free, it can fly. But from a philosophical point of view, the question arises, is it really free? Sartre would say no. He would say that you, even without wings, are much more independent. Let's look at the example of the cuckoo. This bird barely hatches and already has a thirst for violence. Look, it pushes its siblings out of the nest. Mama cuckoo, very clever, doesn't want to take care of offspring, so she lays her egg in the nest of another species and leaves them to raise it. The problem is that this parasite grows larger than its foster parents and refuses to share food. In other words, it's easy for humans to look at this scene and want to judge. My God, an evil chick. Calm down, lady. It's no use judging. This animal doesn't have consciousness. It merely follows the instinct which, in turn, was shaped by natural selection. The more malicious had a better chance of surviving. Hence they passed their genes forward, while the kind ones perished. Thus, violence became part of the essence of this species. Hence the existential difference between bird animal and human animal. The first is born with a defined essence, tied to instinct. The second, however, is not bound to any fixed nature. Through concepts like good, evil, love, justice, the human animal can decide what it will become. If unhappy, it can even decide to stop being. In this sense, you are freer than a bird because through conscious choices, you define your essence. It's true that social factors influence this process. For example, a person raised in a violent environment is more likely to develop a violent or traumatized essence. Still, Sartre argues, none of this implies determinism. For instance, I have a cousin who is a pastor's daughter, but that doesn't mean she turned religious. On the contrary, at 15, she came out as a lesbian. I remember once, at Christmas, I asked, "Mom, why doesn't Mariah have hair?" I was a child, I didn't know. Then she said, "Well, daughter, it's because your cousin made a choice, and we need to respect that." Here we can observe our dilemma in a new light. Why is choosing difficult? Because with each decision, you define your essence, And from an existential point of view, that's a tremendous responsibility. Sartre writes, "Human beings are condemned to be free." Notice he doesn't use the term condemned lightly. He's suggesting that our existence is a paradox, being in the prison of our own freedom. Because to exist, you have no choice but to choose. The passage of time reinforces this dilemma. After all, the human animal is the only one aware that it will die. This awareness accompanies us throughout life, even when we don't realize it. So, when you face a difficult decision and say to yourself, "I won't choose, I can't," you're already choosing. You chose to stand still. A fundamental part of your consciousness knows this, and from there arises a treacherous feeling. Existential angst, the sensation that time is slipping through your fingers and you are wasting your life. Sometimes the world seems like chaos, injustice, uncertainty, death. If you start thinking too much, you run the risk of feeling at the mercy of chaos, and that no choice matters. Today I know that's not true. Choices matter, especially the small ones. Eating healthily, combing your hair, avoiding toxic people. If you're honest with yourself, you'll notice that making a choice won't fix your life overnight. But if today, just today, you chose to prioritize yourself, man, that's incredible. Sometimes that's all it takes, the decision to listen to your pains and put yourself first. Of course, doing this isn't easy, and it annoys me when someone says, "Oh, to get better, you just have to want it." Thanks, I'm cured. That's not what I'm suggesting. On the contrary, what inspired me to make this video was the idea that deciding is not easy, even when the best choice seems obvious. But philosophy can help break this cycle. I'm a witness. And now I will try to demonstrate this. Kierkegaard, a Christian philosopher, fell in love with Regine, a beautiful, intelligent woman. They dated, got engaged, everything was set for marriage. Then, out of nowhere, Kierkegaard decided to break it off, leaving the woman devastated. Years later, he wrote a letter explaining what he did. He did it because he didn't think he was good enough, thought too much about things. He convinced himself that his fiancée, so sweet, deserved someone better. Regine ended up marrying another man. Kierkegaard, with immense remorse, never loved again, spending the rest of his life trying to answer the question, why do we choose wrong? The result was a brutal book, the kind that slaps you in the face. He writes, "Choose this or that, you will regret it. Love or don't love, cry or don't cry, care or don't. It's all the same, you will regret it either way." It seems pessimistic, but this gentleman is making a provocation about the meaning of life. This becomes clearer in the book. In short, the idea is that as long as we choose hoping for happiness, we will be unhappy. Because look, we grow up with the illusion that good decisions are synonymous with an easy life. This discourse is reinforced by our materialistic culture. Choose the biggest partner, college, profession, and you will be happy. Obviously, the reality is much more complex. Every major choice involves some degree of suffering. The best relationship will still have fights, the best college, boring subjects, the best job, a boss who won't shut up. In short, when we choose hoping for happiness, it becomes easier to get frustrated with life's ups and downs. This is fertile ground for regret. The solution, according to Kierkegaard, is 1. Forget happiness. Seek meaning. Let's look at a practical example. Will goes to the Square Hungry and encounters 2 eateries. One sells the best burger in town, but mediocre fries, and the other doesn't sell burgers, but the fries are wonderful. Both are having a promotion, but Will only has $10. Indecisive, he chooses the burger. Just as he's about to bite into his meal, however, he hears a buzz. What delicious fries! Really, golden, crispy, warm. Then he notices his own fries, sad, limp. Suddenly, doubt creeps in. Did I make the right choice? It's easy to think this because it was a decision without meaning. Let's see how to change that. While waiting in line, Will saw a news piece. The owner of the burger place is being investigated for assaulting a puppy. Suddenly, Will loses his appetite. He thinks, I'm not going to give my money to someone who dislikes dogs. Are you crazy? I'll go to the other restaurant. Does this guarantee he won't regret it? No. But at least now, Will has a why that supports his choice, a reason based not only on pleasure, but on wanting to do the right thing. The decision gained meaning because it now reflects Will's values. The problem with choosing for happiness is that we always end up losing. Choose the pleasure of the burger, Will misses out on the fries. To choose the fries, he misses out on the burger. It's hard to compare options because each brings a different pleasure, and this applies to any decision. Should I marry or stay single? Live alone or with my parents? Declare my feelings to that person or keep reacting to everything they post with fire emojis? Nobody knows. By accepting this reality, we can view our choices from a new perspective. This is you, a primate condemned to be free and therefore living in constant anxiety. A bird comes into the world with a defined essence. Thus, it doesn't need to answer for its murderous instincts. You, on the other hand, need to justify your actions to the world, and above all, to yourself. This is what Sartre refers to by human beings are condemned to be free. This is what Kierkegaard means. Choose or not choose, you will regret it. These two opposing thinkers, atheist and Christian, are saying the same thing. There is no right or wrong choice, at least not objectively. What exists is you and your values, and these are subject to change. In other words, when in doubt, we must forget what seems better, easier, and focus on what makes sense now, in the present. For this, you need to know yourself, because what makes sense to one person doesn't make sense to another. If in doubt, put an introvert in a nightclub and observe. What's the easiest way to get to know yourself? Choosing. Because when you choose and succeed, you learn. When you fail, you learn again. Our paralysis comes from the false notion that if we make a bad choice, we will be ruined. In general, there is room to experiment, even because the most thoughtful versions are still subject to factors we don't control. In other words, the pressure to always make the best choice is not only unfair, it paralyzes us. No one has that much control over life. By seeking meaning instead of happiness, our choices become mechanisms of self-discovery. I choose what makes sense to me now according to my values, and if everything goes wrong, I learn, update my values, and choose again. My opinion is that the process for making difficult decisions begins then, with the easiest choice, taking responsibility for our own lives. This includes being kinder to oneself. After all, if we have been condemned to freedom, there's no reason to increase that sentence with self-reproach. Nobody is perfect, and we are here to learn. If you like philosophy, psychology, and topics related to personal development, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Tell me what you thought of the video by commenting right down below. Thanks for staying till here, and follow the White Rabbit.